So once upon a time, there was a gigantic pot of frogs, and it was an entire society with a government and everything. And this whole story began really when some of the frogs realized that the temperature in their pot was being turned up gradually over time, and they realized that if the temperature kept being turned up, then eventually all the frogs in the pot would be boiled without even knowing what was happening, because they wouldn't even see it coming. But these frogs did, and they tried doing something about it. But they realized that the pot was surrounded by all sorts of security forces, like predators and snakes, so any frogs trying to escape would get eaten. And at first, they were suspecting their government was behind turning up the temperature in the pot and behind this whole plot to boil all the frogs. But they did research and found out that there was a more sinister entity behind their government and pulling all the strings, and that was the Teachers Guild. And their whole reason for having this gigantic pot that they were slowly turning the temperature up on was so they could send dead frogs all across the world to science classrooms for dissection. But when the frogs tried to raise awareness of this issue and tell all the other frogs what was happening, nobody listened, because the whole idea that they were in a big pot that was destined to be slow killed for science classrooms was just too fantastical. But these frogs that realized they were in a boiling pot didn't give up, and they kept investigating this Teachers Guild, and they found out that this Teachers Guild had done the same thing to many other pots around the world, and they were also pulling the strings for all those governments in those different pots with the intention of slowly boiling those frogs. But another thing they discovered was that their tadpoles were going missing, and it was the Teachers Guild that was behind it, and that they were sending those tadpoles off to classrooms as well. And of course, there were some frogs who were wondering where their missing tadpoles went, but the majority of the frogs in the pot didn't think it was real, because their tadpoles hadn't been stolen yet. And even though there were plenty of documented cases of the government stealing tadpoles from frogs, the government still got away with making up all sorts of fake stories to try to discredit the idea of tadpoles going missing. And they also put out all sorts of stories and news articles to try to desensitize people to the idea of things, bad things, happening to tadpoles. So that's what happened. And even though the governing frogs were trying real hard to deny the existence of the Teachers Guild and cover up their sinister activities, more and more frogs woke up and realize what was going on in their pot.